The second front, in which we have an emergence of the Al-Qaeda type fellows, as I mentioned before, is the Sinai Peninsula, 3 times bigger than the state of Israel. Here we have cooperation unprecedented in scope, intensity, if I may say so, intimacy between Israel and the Egyptian army, Egyptian military and intelligence services. The best ever. It never reached this point under President Mubarak, for example. Not under President Sinai. We are now in a system where we are in daily contact, open communications. It works. It reached a point which is extremely important, that is effectively, not formally, effectively Israel and the new government in Egypt, General Sisi, and those he backs, there is a president, there is a prime minister, and most likely Sisi is going to become the next president before the summer. Effectively, we have modified. It's a far-reaching development. We have modified the peace treaty between Israel and Egypt without declaring so, without announcing it. Not to the Israeli people, not to the Egyptian people. But that's a new fact of life. Once again, I'm explaining in a minute. We have with the Egyptians an arrangement which goes years back, which is called AAM, that people didn't know about. It was an understanding between the two governments, brokered by the United States through the MFO, multinational force in the Sinai Peninsula. Observers, international observers. According to the AAM, which stands for Agreed Activities Mechanism, the military clauses, or the clauses of the military annex to the peace treaty, which is an integral part of the peace treaty, can be modified temporarily. But I'm not the government. I put temporarily within these to allow for the Egyptian army, for example, to send troops to those parts, that is most of the territory of the Sinai, is prohibited by the peace treaty for any presence of Egyptian military. Only lightly armed police and border guards. The Egyptian army is not allowed to go to Israel. To have any soldier east of a certain line, which is called line A. Central Sinai, Eastern Sinai, that is close to Israel's border and the Gaza Strip, are prohibited for Egyptian military. Through the AAM, through the Agreed Activities Mechanism, both governments can reach understandings. For example, Israel giving its consent to Egyptian troop movement into the prohibited areas. To cut a long story short, at this point, as I speak to you, the Egyptians were allowed by Israel to introduce no less than 11 battalions into the prohibited areas, including 2 elite commando battalions and 1 armored battalion, tanks, M60s, not the areas. Why? And they are there to stay. It's by the way, when we speak 11 battalions, we are talking roughly a mechanized division. Mechanized division. Mechanized division is all that the Egyptians are allowed to keep in the western side. That was the right thing to do. Because we cannot operate in the Sinai against the terrorists. We cannot violate Egyptian sovereignty. They are extremely sensitive about it. Everybody is. And we need the Egyptian army to start taking measures to uproot the terrorists from their safe havens that they have acquired since Sharon withdrew from Gaza in 2005 in the Sinai Peninsula. I think this situation in which the Egyptians are deployed in the prohibited regions and a de facto modification of the peace treaty is effectively in place, I think this is going to become a permanent feature of our relations with Egypt. What the Egyptians are doing, they are fighting their own style, their own way. They are fighting the terrorists. They started with the northeastern part of the peninsula, completely isolating the Gaza Strip Hamas, taking out of action 95% of all tunnels used for smuggling, etc. No Iranian weapons are moving for over a year now through the Sinai into Gaza Strip. The Egyptians have scored some interesting successes against the terrorists in that region. What we wait for now is for two things to happen. One is for the Egyptians to deploy around Eilat, on their side of the border, but around Eilat, to prevent further firing of missiles on Eilat, or the sister city Aqaba in Jordan. They have to deploy. They have not deployed there as needed. And the second thing, we are expecting and encouraging the Egyptians as far as we can to move before spring, for our spring, to move against the main safe havens of the terrorists in a place called the Halal Mountain, central Sinai, or away from the coastline, and another place which is Jebel Amel Mount Amel, which is very close to the Israeli border. They have to go in Jebel Halal, for example, Halal Mountain. We estimate about 3,000 armed terrorists. That's a major operation. I know something about the Egyptian army, and I think that they will go with a lot of fire. They also have Apache helicopters allowed in the Sinai. And if needed, they will have F-16s allowed to bomb from aerial bombing. Because we need to take care of them. Luckily, fortunately, Egypt used the terrorists in the Sinai as a threat, direct threat, to Egypt's own national security. Because from the Sinai, they mount terrorist operations, quite a few of them already, in mainland Egypt, including bombing the security headquarters in the big city of Mansoura, the Aliyah province, in the Delta, including an attempt on the life of the Interior Minister, General Mohammed Ibrahim, sophisticated operations, and many, many others. And The main organization in the Sinai, which is responsible, is called, and linked to Al-Qaeda, ISIS, is called Ansar Bait al-Maqdis, supporters of Jerusalem, followers of Jerusalem. It's led by an Egyptian by the name, if anybody's interested, Fakhri Ziyadeh. Egyptian intelligence is after him. So far, they failed to capture him. But that's what's growing up. So this is when it comes to the terrorists. I said to you before, I will not repeat it. The old threat to Israel, which was an Arab military coalition, unifying to attack Israel, this threat no longer exists. And the reason is no more Arab arms. Big news. Major news. No Arab arms.